Today, I'm so honored to have with us Raleigh Wilkins, United States Marine Corps combat journalist, living out in Chicago now and working as managing director and senior VP of sales at a management consulting company called Raleigh Wilkins. Raleigh has a long civilian career, correct me if I'm wrong, about 14, 15 years since you transitioned out of the Marines. Mostly working in sales. So I'm really excited to talk with you today, and thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me.
Yeah, so I spent 6 years in the Marine Corps active duty. I went in first as an administrative clerk and then moved into combat journalist roles at lateral move. I also spent some time in I&I division, so I was with Battery H314 in Richmond, Virginia as their I&I and assistant there. So it was an interesting career in the military. I transitioned. I lived in, multiple areas, was stationed in Okinawa for a couple of years, 96 to 98. And, made the decision in 2001 to get out of the Marine Corps and go to the civilian world. The only civilian jobs I'd had before then were, waiting tables, bartendering. I had a little bit of some sales experience selling vacuums door to door at Kirby's. So, while I was in the Marine Corps, and it had some success. So, I wanted to get out and see what it would be like to try my hand in the civilian world.
That's great. How did you choose sales as a career path? I mean, I know you said you did it growing up a little bit, but what appealed to you about it?
Yeah, honestly, when I first got out, I looked at marketing. So my first job when I got out was an odd role where I had opportunity to have 3 different roles at this company called Phillips. And I ended up going as an executive assistant to senior vice president of operations. And so it was me and probably 7 55 or older women in this secretarial pool. And I did that because I wanted to get visibility into the company. When I didn't know what to do when I left the Marine Corps. And they liked the military experience. They liked the discipline. The SVP of operations saw something in me and thought, why don't you just work with me for a year and I can show you around this organization. And, we don't get paid a lot in the military. So it was a pretty lateral move as far as pay, but it gave me a tremendous amount of exposure within the organization. I went into marketing for a while, realized that I didn't really want to write. I'd done that in the Marine Corps already. And so the next role I looked at, I said, I want an opportunity to let the discipline that I learned in the military and some of the procedures and processes ties really well to how you actually sell. So there's a selling framework at every company you go to. It is about learning methodologies and executing against those. It's repeatable. It's something that if you have the discipline to be able to overcome your natural fear of hearing no, that you can push through and have a really successful career. And so it's a really good segue for anyone leaving the military.
What I like too about that position you took starting out is, you might have looked at it like you said, it's an administrative, really a secretarial type job, but you got your feet wet, you got in the door, you got to work side by side with a senior level executive. Like you said, it probably took you under his wing a little bit, showed you the ropes, and just opened your eyes to a lot of stuff that you wouldn't normally have had that opportunity.
Yeah.
What do you like the most about it? I mean, obviously, you said, hey, it's a great career for the military veterans, and I feel the same way. I think it's an awesome match. It's a perfect fit for so many people. The characteristics of a typical veteran coming out, the skills you've learned in the military just translate so well to sales. And I always try to encourage veterans to go that route who are intrigued by it.
So, I mean, as far as what you like the most and least, I mean, it kind of depends. But when I think about what I do in sales and what I had to learn, we'll start with what was the hardest. And it was transitioning into a civilian-based economy and a civilian-based workforce. You have all variety of people who are there, and I had to stop judging myself by the people that were around me. So there were some things they were better at because they'd been in the workforce longer than me and I'd been in the military. But when I tried to compare myself to them, I would find myself sliding backwards into whatever their behavior patterns were and not doing what made me successful in the military. I mean, regardless of what branch you're in, how to pay attention to detail, how to follow orders, how to follow through with the process because we all graduated some type of boot camp. We all had a job we had to learn. In sales, it's the same thing, but what you're going to find is if you really want to be part of the 10% of sales and not the 90%, do what's being expected of you. Because most of the people that are in a selling role, they're going to wash out after a year or two, and they're going to do it because they can't learn a process. They want to try to do it their own way. And whoever's been there has the right way to do it. So model after them, execute on it, and you're going to be able to find success. The hardest thing is hearing no consistently and often, and realizing that no one is good at it to start with. There's no such thing as a natural salesperson. There's people that can learn and people that can execute. And the people that can learn and can execute and have the discipline to push through and have an ability to separate the emotional from the outcome are going to be successful. And so if you can do that, you need to realize that it's just going to take a period of time to learn, just like any other skill. So the best thing about it is you truly do chart your own course and destiny. So in the military, like much of the civilian world, it's a layered promotional system, meaning you come in as an associate marketing editor or as an admin, you become an admin level 2, just like you move from E1, E2, E3, E5, E8. The difference in the civilian world, and what I loved about it is if you're successful, you can leapfrog. There is no necessity in sales to wait for the next year's review to get a small increase in pay. You can go to another role once you learn the basic tenets of selling, and you can basically chart your own income. And so when you look at it from that perspective, you got to get out of the military mindset of I work hard, wait for my biannual review, and then, get promoted based on time and grade. In sales, you can go from being paid as an E5 to go on to be paid as an O3. And so that's the thing that I liked about it was, so the hard thing was separating myself from the herd, because that's how you stayed safe in the military. You just did what was expected of you and executed. In the civilian world, it's difficult because there's really no one that's going to help drive and push you. And so you can't really just look at your peers because chances are they don't have your level of discipline.
Right. Absolutely. Let's switch gears now and talk about the job getting skills. All right. A veteran wants to go into the sales world or wants to switch careers. What do you recommend what are some of your favorite tips for what he or she could do to really promote himself to get noticed by hiring decision makers?
Yeah, well, the first thing is use your network. So if you're not on LinkedIn already, make sure you are and start to build your profile. And then spend some time trying to translate whatever you did in the military into civilian terms. So find someone you can trust who's done that bridge before, because almost invariably, whatever your MOS was, it's going to have direct tie. And don't underestimate the power of your military background when you talk to recruiters. Talk to them about the rigor of boot camp, the ability to learn something you didn't know about. Whether you're a motor T person, a combat journalist, an admin, artillery, infantry, doesn't matter. You didn't know anything about it when you walked in, but you quickly picked it up. Everyone says they're a fast learner. Everybody says I have discipline. You've got a document in your hand, your DD-214, that not only says you did it, but proves you did it. Mm-hmm. And the ability to execute against that is what you want to showcase. Quite often you're going to run it, well, you don't have any sales experience, you're risk, we want to take somebody who has industry experience and say just exactly what I just said, spend the military experience in that. It's always easier to get into a company if it is veteran owned or they have veterans that are there. So if you have someone that can help you do a search for, like myself, a Marine who's in the company, they're going to help look out for you and get your resume in. But just blind applying and throwing your DD-214 or whatever kind of exit interview resume you did, you're going to be struggling to get into the door.
Yeah, I love that advice too, the veteran-owned business route. There are so many veteran-owned businesses out there. I think there's a site called veteranownedbusinesses.com that has a directory. If you go to LinkedIn, like you said, you get a free premium account as a veteran on LinkedIn, and you could do searches for your branch, Marine Corps, business owner, VP of sales, director of marketing, and you'll see all these people come up who you have an instant connection to. It's a natural network that you guys have.
Well, I had, when I looked at stuff like that, even when I was recruiting for companies I've been at in the past, if I see Marine in there, I'll reach out to him directly and I'll say, hey, I'm looking for this. Are you interested, or do you know anyone who is? You always get some kind of long email back. You know,
Yeah.
hey, you're looking out for another leatherneck,
Of
you know, I'm
course.
not interested, whatever. But it's something that differentiates you from being every other person that's out
Right.
there. And it
Right.
doesn't, here, the other piece I would suggest to the people who are listening to this is don't just focus on the people that are the hiring manager. Anybody in that organization that's a veteran is going to help get your foot in the door. And you
Right.
can just say, hey, you know, I'm a former Marine, you know, I noticed you had a Marine Corps background as well. Who would I even send my resume to get it noticed?
And even taking that a step further, which I love that advice, because you never know who knows who's going to help you, who's going to get excited that you're reaching out. But
That's right.
to ask for advice, you know, ask for suggestions instead of always just, hey, you have a job, you guys hiring, but
That's right.
hey, can you give me a hand? I'd love to hear about your background. People are so, I found, willing to talk and to tell their story and to feel like they're helping in some small way. So I love that. That's great advice. What about some interview tips now? What are some of your, you know, pitfalls that you've noticed people, you know, some mistakes people you notice people make when they interview, or suggestions for some things that they should be doing when they're going in?
Yeah, well, I think one of them is, you know, simple things like appearance, make sure you're groomed well.
Yeah.
If I was going on an interview right now, I wouldn't have this, you know, kind of 6-day growth of beard that I have right now. You know, but also you know, some of the things that especially in sales, you got to pay attention to are salespeople in a job interview as a sales call. Often think that salespeople dress real well because they're just prima donnas and egotistical, and that's true. But the other side of that is you don't want to have anything about your appearance detract. So if you wear earrings, take them out.
Right.
If you're a religious person, I'm a Catholic. I don't wear anything that shows that religious. I don't even use Marine Corps stuff on anything that I wear on a personal level that I would wear when I go to a job interview, because you don't know the person's bias that's saying it.
Right.
And so, you know, most places in the world, it's never hurt me that I've been a Marine, but I can imagine if somebody has, you know, maybe foreign relations or nationals, or maybe they had a bad experience with it. You just don't want anything like that. But as far as the rest of it, just remember the things they teach in the military. Bearing is, you know, the number one thing. Do your research on the company before you go. Look at the person's LinkedIn. Make sure that you can have a few relevant things to say about them. You know, you want to show that you did your research, but you'd also want to be like a creepy date where they're like, hey, I liked your kitten video. Stay away from it. But, you know, anything like, hey, I noticed you went to University of Michigan. What was that experience like? Or you have a degree in Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration. How is that leveraged into this role? Hey, I've noticed you've been here for 90 days. You know, what are you looking to change? You know, something like that shows a lot of preparation. And that, to me, is a leg up on what most people do.
Yeah, very few spend more than a few minutes. It's so discouraging. But, and all this info is so easy for them. It's all right at their fingertips, you know? It's like,
but if you're, especially a veteran coming out, you don't know that. It's not like we use LinkedIn in the military. So believe it or not, even though these things that are there, like I always say, if you want to be the 1% or the 10% of any group of people, do what's expected of you, like doing those things, and you will completely shine. And I think the last one I give is just when you're going out to these interviews, make sure you do your follow-up. So the email is a good way to do it. But try not to make it generic. They all look exactly the same way. Hey, thanks for your time. It is great to meet you. I look forward to working with you. Hope to hear back soon. You got to say that. That's the table stakes. But beyond that, like reference something in the conversation that makes you memorable. You know, as we discussed, one of the major initiatives you have this year is in breaking into new territory. As a former Marine, you know, I'm fearless when it comes into going into new territory. And as we discussed, one of the things I think I'll bring is the ability to execute on the strategy.
Right. Just spend a little bit more time than what you might normally do. I like to say when they zig, you zag. When everyone else is doing this, do the opposite, you know, and you got to stand out. You got to be you got to take a little risk here to get noticed, because it's tough. I mean, give you an example. We're advertising. One of our clients is looking for a sales position today, and we've got just in 24 hours, we're up to 324 applicants or something nuts like that. And it's good for us because it gives us a lot of choice, but you have to do stuff that's going to stand out, make yourself different, and get people to pay attention to you. But this was awesome advice, Raleigh. I can't thank you enough for spending a few minutes and sharing some of your experiences. And I really feel people who watch this are going to benefit from it. And you know, I thank you for that. Would it be okay if we include your contact info, your LinkedIn page in the description?
Sure.
Maybe people can connect if they want to talk to you a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do. Anything I can do to help another military member. So let me
Awesome.
know.